Hi, it's Jeremy Shatton from An Earful. Welcome back to Discover Music with An Earful. This is monthly listening for September 2024, and we have a lot of music to talk about, starting with my trip to the Brooklyn Flea Record Fair. This was such a wonderful day. It was on September 22nd out in Marsha P. Johnson State Park, right next to Smorgasburg, where we did get some fine snacks. But the main deal was digging through the crates of some dusty old records and also some brand new records. There's a lot of record labels there. Spent a good bit of time chatting with the fine people of Greenway Records. I wish I had something new to report on the great Matt Stevenson, whose album Kalamocho Molotov as Jane Church was one of my favorites of the 2010s. They said he's like a troubadour. He's out there somewhere. He's working on things. Maybe eventually we'll get some new songs. They did tell me that new music is on its way from Frankie and the Witchfingers, and that's already come true with a single called Bonehead out this month. For used records, I had to go to Carolina Soul. Every record is $6. If you find four, they're 4 for $20. It's a good deal, but I'm very, very selective, and I only found two, slightly breaking my rule of not buying something that I can easily listen to on Spotify. I know that's a thing, but I have limited space, limited funds, but I had to get a beautiful Tough Gong pressing of Rita Marley's debut solo album, Who Feels It Knows It. This is from 1980. And let me tell you something. This album has been giving me life in the last few weeks. It's just so beautiful. Listening to it every day. She has an incredible lineup of musicians on there, many members of the Wailers. It's executive produced by The Gong, i.e., Bob Marley himself, co-produced by Rita Marley herself and Ashley Grubb Cooper. Really fantastic record. Definitely dial it up on Spotify or wherever you get your streaming music. But if you can find a thick slab of Jamaican wax like the one I have, get it. You will not be disappointed. I also picked up Suite for Flute and Jazz Piano by Claude Bolling with Jean-Pierre Rampal. This is one of my favorite records as a kid. It's just so much fun, so light and airy, beautiful blend of classical and jazz. Really a really nice record. So I was glad to find those two at the Carolina Soul. $12 later, I was a happy man. When we come back, 2 live concerts. The first concert I went to in September was on the 22nd at Roulette in Brooklyn, and it was the Talk Ensemble's season opening show featuring 2 world premieres by Seth Cluett. He is a composer, sound artist, producer, and someone who's deeply engaged with the sounds of nature, often incorporating what he calls artificial field recordings into his work. You'll hear a little bit about that in the second piece, and he's very, very sensitive to these sounds and builds up these soundscapes that are incredibly quiet but incredibly active at the same time. The first piece was a video called The Reformation of Assemblages. It featured the Talk Ensemble, movement artists, and cinematographers in a secluded area of Prospect Park, playing with pieces of nature and making sounds with them. It was almost a Zen experience watching hands draw a feather across a rock and imagining the sound that might, because it was so inaudible. There was also shaking of leafy branches, and it was gorgeously shot with just these green trees. A really, really interesting experience. The second piece was called Irreversible Histories of Disturbance, and this took place live in Roulette with the musicians playing their own instruments, but also many creations of Cluett's, including slide whistles that he's automated with little fans, so you don't have to blow on them and you can adjust the pitch much more precisely. He also had a small stand with leafy twigs attached to it, and when they rotated, the leaves brushed against each other, and I guess in a way that could be considered an artificial field recording. It's nature in the room, but it's not happening naturally. A really incredible piece. It was almost only near the end when they started subtracting elements that you realized just how much had been going on in this very tonally focused piece. Really an incredible composer, beautifully performed by the Talk Ensemble. Just an experience that I won't soon forget. The second show was very different. It was in Forest Hills, in the tennis stadium there, and we won tickets to see the Walkmen opening for Idols. Idols is a band I run a little hot and cold on. I think their new album is pretty good. It's called Tank. It's a little more nuanced, I would say, than their earlier stuff. I did like their album quite a bit for a while, but it sort of grew tired of it quickly. But they are a force for good, I think, in general. And it was very cool to see them perform because their energy is completely unflagging. When I knew it was 3/4 of the way through the show, I just marveled at how they did not stop and the crowd did not stop moving. So that was very cool. And they also had great lighting and just a great stage setup and complete interaction with the crowd, throwing themselves in there and getting carried by the crowd, going back on stage, a real performance. On one song, they had a kid from the audience play drums. And he knew what he was doing too. He was a good drummer, but that was just so cool to watch it on the screen. But the real reason we headed all the way out to Forest Hills was to see the Walkmen. The Walkmen have been one of my favorite bands since around 2001 when I first heard their debut album, Everyone Who Pretended to Like Me Is Gone. And from then on, I just followed their career very closely. Got to see them in concert around 2011 playing with Fleet Foxes. What an amazing double bill. And they made a wonderful album in 2012 called Heaven, which was kind of the pinnacle, I think, of their career. But all their albums are just so great. They feature this incandescent guitar playing by Paul Maroon and the impassioned singing of Hamilton Leithauser. Wonderful instrumental support from Walter Martin Jr. and Matt Barrick, an incredible drummer. Peter Matthew Bauer on bass and organ. They're just a superb rock and roll band. But they had gone on what they called extreme hiatus in 2013. They all went off and did their solo projects, some of which were excellent, especially Hamilton Leithauser's albums. Black Hours is just absolutely incredible. I highly recommend all of his stuff. But then last year they got back together and they started doing concerts. They did a whole tour. I tried to get tickets. It was impossible. So here we were in Forest Hills with about a half-filled arena because they were the opening act. But man, they brought it right from the first song. It sounded just like they always did at their very, very best. Maybe I got lucky because they had been on the road a little bit. They were tuned up. I don't know. I didn't see the other shows. But man, they are just so great and just a wonderful presence on stage. They played many of their best songs, The Rat, Heaven, just beautiful stuff. I was knocked out. A wonderful reunion of my ears with their live sound. And my daughter got to see them for the first time. What a joy. When we come back, recordings. The first recording this month comes from Taloy Rouge, the Persian Cajun viola duo of Arya Cheragosha and Lauren Spalding. The album is called Shapes in Collective Space, and it features the work of a number of composers, including Inti Figgis Vizueta, Kian Revale, Gemma Peacock, and Lailahu Lanzalotti. In fact, it was them who recommended Taloy Rouge send me their album, thought I would like it, and they were right. You can hear the Cajun influence on some of the songs, not on all of them. We're actually going to hear Lailahu Lanzalotti's piece, Silhouette Mirror, right now. Lovely contemplative stuff from Laila Lanzalotti, played by Talaï Rouge. The name of the duo means the red gold. Next we have Quarterly's newest album, Adonis. Quarterly is the duo of Kristen Dreimala, who plays cello, and Christopher DiPietro, who plays guitar, percussion, hammered lap steel, a number of other instruments. The last album of theirs was Pomegranate, really more of an EP, and that came out in 2020. I really enjoyed that and included it on my Best of Classical 2020. I noted that they combine folk and classical traditions in a similar way as Penguin Cafe Orchestra. There's less puckishness and repetition, but a similar combination of folk textures and classical structures with a little bit of what they call post-rock minimalism. Let's hear an excerpt from the track The Bed is a Floor with a Sleeper from Quarterly and their album Adonis. The Bed is a Floor is a Sleeper by Quarterly from their album Adonis. A very nice sound for fall, I have to say. Just those acoustic textures are so beautiful. Next we have a really fascinating album from Sarah Davachi, the Canadian composer. She is known for long-form pieces, almost immobile constants of sound. And her new album includes some of that as well. It's called The Head as Formed in the Crier's Choir. It makes reference to the Orpheus myth, both through Rilke's Sonnets of Orpheus and Monteverdi's L'Orfeo. I'm not quite sure of all the tangents that connect these things, but I have found this to be a deeply rewarding listen. The track we're going to hear features Davachi playing her signature pipe organ. It is called The Crier's Choir, and you're going to hear some right now. Even in just that excerpt of The Crier's Choir by Sarah Davachi, you can hear her absolute mastery of the pipe organ. The textures that build up in there are so fascinating. You need to hear the whole piece on her album The Head as Formed in the Criers Choir. Say that 3 times fast. Next, we have a beautiful album that I almost missed. It got buried in my inbox. Rebecca Heller of the International Contemporary Ensemble, a wonderful bassoonist, improviser, and now composer. She has composed every track on this very short album, call it an EP if you want, called One. The pieces use her bassoon built up in layers along with her voice for some really involving, immersive music. One thing that caught my eye was there's one track called For Ryan, and that's a piece for Ryan Muncy, a wonderful sax player who died suddenly a couple of years ago. He was also in the International Contemporary Ensemble. I remember seeing Heller and Muncy together at the Miller Theater playing Du Yun, and it was absolutely magical. The two of them just seemed to be symbiotic. In that review, I said Heller's technique is jaw-dropping, and that her and Muncy's grasp of extended techniques made all the clicking and breathy sounds an organic part of their instruments. But after For Ryan, which is a understandably brooding piece of rumination on the loss of this great friend and musician, the last track is called Ode to Joy, and it really is just transporting. I think there's something brave about putting Ode to Joy after For Ryan. So let's listen to a little bit of Ode to Joy from Rebecca Heller's One. Isn't that something? Ode to Joy by Rebecca Heller from her album One. Interesting fact about the album is that it was engineered by Tony Maimone, legendary member of Pere Ubu, back in the day when they made world-changing albums like Dub Housing and New Picnic Time. Just an absolute master. He's been engineering and mixing, doing production stuff like that in the New Classical Space for a while, but I forgot about that. I think this is as good a time as any to take a little break. When we come back, things are going to get even more eclectic in a minute on Discover Music with an Earful. And I am back, and we're going to start off this part with the newest album from Yai. That's Y-A-I. It's their third album, Skytime. First album I've heard by them, though, and they are wonderful. Calling themselves Dream Jazz Abstractionists. This is the duo of David Lackner and John Thayer. They are both multi-instrumentalists. Lackner plays EWI, which is the electronic wind instrument, Rhodes, Wurlitzer, Moog Matriarch, Lowry organ, flute, tenor sax, clarinet, soprano sax, Yamaha MOX6, Korg monologue, and a Juno 106. Thayer plays a U, which is a drum, congas, crystal rattle, percussion, programming, electron digitact, tape echo, field recordings, Moog Matriarch, and modular synth. But it combines into a unified sound that just takes you away on a little journey. Reminds me a little of John Hassell and Brian Eno's classic Fourth World Volume 1 Possible Musics. But it really is its own thing. I'm looking forward to getting back to the other albums by Yai. For now, let's hear the first track on the album, which is called Obsidian Sun, from Skytime by Yai. Obsidian Sun by Yai from their album Skytime. This came out on the AKP label, which just has an extraordinary hit rate with me. I love a lot of their stuff. The same can be said for Phantom Limb, who have just released the latest from Ibukun Sunday, the Lagos-based electronic musician, composer, and violist. The name of the album is Harmony Balance. He's drawing on themes from the Bhagavad Gita, a foundational text from the Hare Krishna founder A.C. Bhaktivedanta. It explores the duality of man: humility, self-control, devotion versus arrogance, envy, the pursuit of power. Harmony Balance is deceptively simple and actually a little bit hard to get into at first. I found that it just rewarded my patience, however. So listen with patience, listen with intention, and we're going to hear Of the Armies by Ibukun Sunday from his album Harmony Balance. Of the Armies by Ibukun Sunday from his album Harmony Balance. A really wonderful, rewarding album. Passionate and powerful. The more you listen to it, the more you understand its textures and movements, the melodies and the drones combining in a very, very special way. Next, we're going to a very different space and sound from Africa, the Sahara, the Aïr region, Étranne de l'Aïr, the stars of the Aïr. This is the Tuareg guitar band Their latest album is called 100% Sahara Guitar, and that is exactly what they give us. I saw them live a couple of years ago. They are just absolutely incredible. What a wonderful group. Quartet, 2 guitarists, bass player, drummer, and the guitarist and the bass player, they all switch around when they're playing live, at least. It's a wonderful thing to watch. But let's give a listen to the start-off track from 100% Sahara Guitar. This is Igra Messina by Etran de la Ire. Sorry to interrupt your dancing. You were dancing, weren't you? And by the way, if you ever find yourself in Agadez and you happen to be getting married, Etran de la Ire is the #1 wedding band in Agadez, in Sahara. Now we're going to make an international flight to Brazil for the artist who calls himself Fer Loki. This album dropped into my release radar thanks to a collaboration with Domenico Lanzelotti, one of my favorite Brazilian artists of recent years. The name of this album is Todos os Caminhos Levam a Todos, All Paths Lead to Everyone. And the song we're going to hear is Parei de Chover, which means I stopped listening to you. But you won't want to stop listening to this blissful track from Fer Loki coming at you now.
My brother, my brother, sister. My brother, sister, my brother, my brother, sister. Eu parei de te ouvir pra fingir que tu não está aqui. Eu parei de fingir que não tem você na esquina ali.
Blissful, yes, but not without that sardonic edge Brazilians are so good at in their music. Fer Loki's Parei de Chover from his album Todos os Caminhos Levam a Todos. Just a wonderful record. I just can't recommend it enough. Next, we go from blissful to blissing. That is a song by Michelle from their latest album. Michelle is not a person. Michelle is a band. The name of the album is Songs About You, specifically. This is a 6-piece group, 2 instrumentalists and 4 singers. I saw them back in 2022, and it was just stunning to hear those vocal harmonies coming right off the stage. Their dancing was also great, choreographed but natural. It didn't feel forced like some kind of athletic display. Just fit the music, fit their personalities. great live band. This is their third full-length album, and they kind of actually started out as a project by Julian Kaufman and Charlie Kilgore, the two instrumentalists, to make a record about New York. They call that one Heat Wave. Great record. Then they got signed to Atlantic Records, kind of a big label. They put out another record called After Dinner We Talk Dreams in 2022. Really great. But I think their latest one may be the best yet. It somehow finds a really beautiful line between R&B, dance pop, indie pop, art pop, and it's incredibly well produced. Even on my laptop, the spread of the sounds just kind of enlarged the space I was sitting in. Really, really good album. Now, interestingly enough, in addition to Kaufman and Kilgore, there's 4 singers: Sophia D'Angelo, Layla Koo, Emma Lee, and Jamie Lockard. I was looking on the credits and I found that they were working with somebody called Maya Polsky. Seems to be a bit of a secret weapon on this record. A brilliant guitarist who just graduated from Brown University a couple of years ago. Find her on Instagram and you'll be dazzled by her technique. But she seems to add a lot to this record. So maybe she's even an unofficial member of the band. I don't know. But I've talked too much. I've kept you from blissing with Michelle. So here it is on Discover Music with an Earful.
It took me far out. It took me so low. It took me far out. It took me far out. It took me so low. It took me far out. Watching and waiting and losing grip on reality. You're so impatient. I think that you're just cut out for me. I get by fantastic with my head against the wall. Pull a little closer as we give into it all. Moving it up my spine, put me in position. The feeling of yours and mine tumbles into pissing. I'm getting way too high, I just might. Oh my God, the feeling of yours and mine tumbles into pissing. You took me far out, you took me so low. You took me far out. You took me far out, you took me so low. You took me far out. Watching and waiting and losing grip on.
Blissing by Michelle from their album Songs About You specifically. And there are a lot of relationships on this record. Failed ones, perfect ones, new ones, old ones. It's a lot of fun to read through the lyrics and try to pick apart what's been going on in their lives. But that's just dance pop perfection. And they sing about losing your grip on reality, but they do not lose their grip on the dance floor in that song. I also love those distorted sounds that come in near the second part of the excerpt. Really just a fun, smart record. Speaking of fun and smart, next we have Old City. This is a Philadelphia-based group who are combining punk rock and hip-hop in a new way. They call their debut album, self-titled, a punk rock Paul's Boutique because they've apparently culled hundreds of samples from punk records. And then they also have some actual live punk bands playing on the record. And it really runs the gamut, though. The song you're going to hear is pretty hard-hitting hip-hop, but they also have a track on here that's sort of like a jazz soundtrack piece, and it's really good. It's totally involving, takes you on a journey. So let's hear a bit from Jump Off, which is the second track from Old City by Old City.
Yeah, here we go. Turn my headphones up. Old heads giving props to all the rhymers that can barely quote an overdose of golden air flows like it was all dope. Full of four no, cause if y'all battle each other, how the hell you expect me not to do the same, brother? I ain't gotta like now that goddamn money is. Summing up your top 5 dead, I'm still trouble for 'em. I ain't got a subtle form of knowing I'm a killer, cause I'm only on the mic to pistol whip all of your eardrums. Yeah, they gonna say ain't nobody new coming with it, and they count chips with the heavy salt and vinegar. Feel some type of way about me I feel sorry for, not feeling sorry, but I get the fuck out of right here. I solemnly swear I never gave a dingleberry. If I ever did, I'd probably flick it at Guy Fieri. Obviously, I carry every disease from 83 to 99, but anybody can rhyme.
Two studied together. One the crane style, the other the tiger. The idea was, we'd later combine both styles, unify the techniques. We were too young, too full of ignorant pride in our own specialist style. Too ignorant fools.
Always rappers rapping about rapping better than other rappers. Gravitate to super groups to prove I never heard of a word. Cousin, bet your name is buzzing where you see you from. Nothing really popping in your life, so you make it up. Waste a couple bucks if you're a hustler, that's how you do it. Money in the rap game epitomizes all music. Time it takes for one to try to study all the greats that could have played with a couple different cadences.
Jump Off by Old City from their debut album, Old City. I love that line, all these rappers rapping about rapping better than other rappers. That's Trey Ocho rapping and Justin Mayer producing with some help from different guests throughout the album. It's a definite ride you should take. Get to it. Next we have the second album from Dummy. Their first album, Mandatory Enjoyment, was a nice surprise in 2021. And now we have Free Energy. I hear lots of echoes of Stereolab on this record. And that's totally fine because Stereolab is one of the greatest bands of all time. At their best, they literally created a genre. So why not have other people play with that genre? I feel like Dummy does that very nicely, but they also bring their own thing, their own kind of arty, angular, swirling sound to whatever they do. So we're going to hear an excerpt from Minus World from the album Free Energy by Dummy. World by Dummy from their album Free Energy. That energy is free, and I love that super heavy part, and then the airy vocals come in. It's just a really nice use of that loud, quiet, loud thing that we just can't get enough of in the rock world. Actually, in the classical world too, it can work really well. Next, we have a band called Star Cleaner Reunion. If you recommended them to me, please get in touch because I cannot remember for the life of me how I started listening to Star Cleaner Reunion. It could have been that fella known as Al Go Rhythm, but I wouldn't bet my life on it. I do notice that the new EP, Cafe Life, is mixed by Ruben Radlauer, who's the drummer for Model Actress, a really great band that I saw a couple of years ago and have been listening to ever since. So maybe that's how the algorithm found me. I'm not really sure. All I can tell you is that this EP is great. It's called Cafe Life, Star Cleaner Reunion. They're a New York band. Came out of New Jersey, met in high school, the whole trip that you've heard so many times before. Let's hear a little bit of Snowfeel from Star Cleaner Reunion. Dark Cleaner Reunion and their song Snowfield from Cafe Life, their latest EP. Catch up with them. There's only a couple of things to catch up with since they've been putting out music since 2023. Unlike the next band, Cal Marx. They've put out at least 7 albums since 2011, and now we have a brand new one from them, which is the first one I'm hearing from them. So it's like, wow, this is a really accomplished, powerful group. Art Rock Majesty. They take everything they've learned about noise and weld it to great songs. The album is a bit of a concept. It feels like it's taking you on a journey through a dystopian wasteland. And then it gets to the last song, which is the title track, Wasteland Baby, and you really feel like you've arrived somewhere. Maybe it's not the best place, but it feels good to be there. It's just a great song. The whole album is really good, but I'm giving you a treat. I'm just going to cut right to the chase. Here is an excerpt of Wasteland Baby from Wasteland Baby by Cal Marx.
Wasteland Baby. Outside are ripping holes for your dreams of living a civil happy life. The Rust Belt is every day. There's only one thing in this world I don't despise. All its eyes. A fool in love with a bomb at his back. I set the world alive. Downtown, there'll be no one else around. It's alright. I went on a liquor store heist. She's my wasteland baby. She's my wasteland baby. She's my wasteland baby.
Wasteland Baby by Cal Marx, the title track from their latest album. Carl Shane is the main man in the group, vocals, lyrics, guitars. He's joined by Christina Puerto, guitar and vocals, John Russell, bass and vocals, and Adam Berkowitz, drums and percussions. Now, I am not a Bruce Springsteen fan, but in that song I hear a little bit of what I think he's trying to do sometimes, especially when he covers that band Suicide. You know what I'm talking about? He does Dream Baby Dream by Suicide, sort of welds this art with this Americana together, this kind of really brutal, arty sound that Suicide was so good at. I think that Cal Marx is really onto something with this record. I've cherry-picked through some of their earlier stuff, and it's all really good. The main difference I notice is Carl Shane's confidence and depth as a vocalist. His versatility has really, really grown over the years. I think they may be at their peak. Maybe there are some who are like, oh, they're not noisy enough anymore. I think it's great. I like this album a lot. I hope you do too. That is the last album we're going to feature on this month's episode of Discover Music with an Earful. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've made it this far, I'm very grateful to you. All the music you heard has been ethically sourced from the artists and labels. Many thanks to them. You'll find links to those and everything else discussed in the show notes, which will also include a Spotify playlist so you can hear everything. The interstitial tracks are by me, circa 1984, with Andy Gilchrist on occasional guitar. Thanks as always to the Droplets, Holly Miranda, Ann Parsley, and Chris Maxwell for my theme song. You can find me at anearful.substack.com and all the socials. Please share, rate, and review this podcast. That is the only way we can continue growing this movement to reveal the finest music of our time. This is Jeremy Shatton from An Earful. See you next month.